After doing music production for like 6-7 years, I've come to the conclusion that when you're starting out, the hardest thing to do is learn how to mix vocals, learn how to get good guitar tones, and learn how to get good drums. Plus, when you're starting out, drums are like the most expensive thing you'll invest in, unless you're buying like Omnisphere or Trillion. In that case, more power to you. But when you're starting out, you'll be looking at plugins like Addictive Drums, Superior Drummer. You might even just be looking at samples, which is cool because today we're going to be going over how to add drums to your tracks, whether that be with samples, free packs, cheaper plugins, or these expensive plugins like Superior Drummer and Addictive Drums. Let's get started. Okay, so first up, for free stuff, this is kind of like Ableton only, but I'm sure your DAW also has its own like instrument packs. I'm gonna use a Session Drum Studio. It's an Ableton pack. It's pretty good. This will just be our free option. I think I'm gonna start with Direct Natural. So as for the drums we have here, they sound like this. Which sound pretty good. So let's just make up a drum section as we go and we'll see what we get. Okay, so here's our drum section. It actually sounds quite good. So what I like about these Ableton packs is that you can switch out the actual hits. So if you want to like change the hit, let's say I want a different kick, I can go into the kick and I can drag in like that. I'll drag that into where the kick is. That's a different kick. Then you've got all your individual like processing here. So whatever you click on, you can change here, which is cool. You can also add your own processing individually by adding whatever plugins you want. So let's say I want to add a decapitator to your snare. Let's click the snare. This is the one I was using, and then I'll drag the decapitator in there. Now you can have a distorted snare. This sounds pretty good too. Now, obviously with something like this, you can't edit the mics or anything. You can't like lower the overheads or like change the bottom snare mic. Just not possible, but it does sound really good for what it is. I would definitely use this. Next, we're gonna switch to samples. So the issue I have with using drum samples is that I have to build the kit every time. And sure, you can save the kit, but sometimes I wanna change the kit and I just don't wanna make the kit every damn time. But that's really just nitpicky. What I like to use for drum samples is the Make Pop Music stuff. I'll go into Sour Candy, and I think this is like $35 to $50. I don't really remember. But it's cheap. All right, so we got our samples in here. I pretty much just put all the samples I did use. I didn't use any of these areas here, all the different toms and side sticks and stuff. But yeah, they're all filled out. Let's give it a listen, see what we need to do. All right, that sounds good. Obviously, the difference between these samples and the packs I used earlier is these samples don't have velocity layers. They do here. Like you can actually drag them into each individual little drum pad and have them change velocity, which is cool. You can do that by clicking the pad, you open it up in a group, and then when you open this up, so what I can do is I'll drag in all the velocities here. And then all you got to do is go into this velocity area, right click, press distribute ranges equally. And the only issue is you have to switch these all to one shot, which is super annoying, so that they don't just like clip out. So I'll go ahead and do all that. And I've got your velocity ranges. So very light, heavy, even heavier. Velocity ranges, you can do that to every single drum hit if your sample library comes with a bunch of different velocities. I'm not going to do that because it's a total pain in the ass. But when you do it, you can save it, and then you've got a nice little drum kit. All your velocities and your round robins, and it sounds pretty realistic. Next up, we're moving to a cheaper drum plugin called 𝗕𝗘𝗖𝗢𝗠𝗘 Drums 5. So let's drag that on. It should match all our drum hits, so we can just go ahead and click a kit. It comes with all these kits. There's a bunch of them. Let's go for, I never know which one to click because I don't use this one too much. Let's do Loose and Vintage and see how that sounds. So the Vintage kit sounds like this. Sounds fine. The snare doesn't sound great, so maybe I'll switch out the snare, which is a great thing about this plugin because you can switch out the snares to whatever snare you want. So let's go to, well, that sounds good. Let's do that. Drag that onto the snare. Better. Now, it sounds all right, but what you can do is you can A, edit all the instruments, and B, mix the actual tracks. So what I would do to make it sound a little more realistic is I'll bring the room up a little more. So that's an advantage. You can heavily edit the hits to make them, you know, sound exactly how you want for the song. It's not as versatile and like customizable as Superior Drummer, which we'll get into later, but it's pretty good. You can also change the mapping here, and you can also add some grooves, which is like little MIDI drum loops. So let's just, I don't know, drag this in, see what it sounds like. Obviously you want to drag in a MIDI groove that makes sense to the song, but that's how those work. And you can really heavily edit the drum kit to make your own favorite sounding drum kit, which is something I like to do in Superior Drummer. So it's good that you can do it in SSD5. Let's click through a couple more of the kits. Let's go to Modern Legend and see what that sounds like. This drums kit sounds awesome. Add some more room in there. I would totally use this. And so obviously a advantage to having something like this is the ability to have a bunch of different sounding kits, as opposed to buying like 6 sample packs of 6 different types of kits. You can just have all these kits available to you. And there's a bunch of them, so it's great. Next up, and lastly, the most expensive option here, Superior Drummer 3 is $400 US. Plus, if you want to buy any of the EZX packs, they're all like around 120, 80 euros, 120 euros, 150 euros. So expensive. I don't have a ton of EZXs. I just have these 4 right here, and they're all good. That's one thing you can be certain of, is if it's from Toontrack, if it's a part of Superior Drummer, it just sounds amazing. So you're not really getting ripped off. But yeah, this is Superior Drummer. This is the core library. It comes with a bunch of different kits. And by a bunch, I mean a bunch. There is a ton of different kits. Not only that, you also can switch out your snares to whatever you want. There's also different types of snares. You can do brushes, which sounds like this. So very, very brushy. You can also take the snare wires off if you want. This is your snare wires off. There's different rods, different drumsticks to hit with, which is actually kind of crazy, the fact they add different drumsticks even. There's even felt mallets if you want. So not only do you have all this customizable stuff for each and every single drum, you also get the mixer, and with the mixer you have all these different effects to mix with. So we can open up just a pop rock. Let's go to Premier Rock right here. So with this one, you get these specific snares. Every single kit has its own specific drums, obviously, and its own specific mix. So these drums will sound like this, which just sounds amazing. And let's say you want to add just a bit more compression to that kick. You can easily just go into the effects, go into the compressor, and add a compressor. Not only that, you can also do all the routing. As you can see, these 3 kick mics are going to this kick bus right here, which means you can add your processing to this kick, and it'll apply the processing to all your kick mics. Same thing with snare, toms, cymbals, so it's easier to mix. You also get a bunch of bleeds, so I'm going to go into the initial default kit and watch what happens as I add different bleed mics and room mics. So let's click here, enable bleed. Enable bleed here. Front height, enable bleed. So a ton of options for miking, and the room mics really make it sound more realistic. So as you can see, there's a ton of customizability here, and we're not even done. There's a ton more that I don't even know about. The groove section as well. You can add your grooves, and then you can change the grooves. Let's say you want to add this verse. I'm going to hit play, and then I'll go in here. Let's say I want less hi-hat. Let's just turn it down. Let's say I want more snare. Click the snare, increase the amount. So it makes it really, really easy to edit your drum parts and add like ghost notes and make them change throughout the song so it doesn't sound very robotic. And that's it. Those are the options for drums. Let me know which one you are going to go for. I am obviously going to stay with Superior Drummer because it's my pride and joy. Really, I love that thing. Hope you learned something. Hope this was useful, and goodbye.